And let's see. It says we are live. So it'll take just a moment here. I don't remember if I know how to orient these pictures on the screen. There's a way to do that, and I don't remember. What it is. Okay, well, here we go. It's Friday night. Live here from the Man Cave again. I see we've got a couple of people joining us. As you come in, let me know who you are and where you're from. Tonight, I've got a special guest with us. We've got Darrin Wilson from the Fire and Water Cooking Channel. And Darrin is our local sous vide expert. He's going to hang in with us a little bit tonight, and he's going to join in on our conversations, and we're going to talk about some cooking like we always do, and we're going to talk about some sous vide and let Darrin tell us some stuff about that. But it is Friday night, and as usual, we're going to kick off with a drink. And Darrin, what are you having tonight?
Yep.
Darrin's got Four Roses.
Four Roses small batch.
Yeah, that's a bourbon that comes out of Kentucky. So Jason Jackson from Melbourne is with us. I had the good fortune of getting to meet Jason a while back at Atlanta Grill Company. Sure did. Jason, glad to have you with us. Tonight, I've got something new. I've got a bottle of this Maker's Mark 46. I did some talking with a friend of mine in another group that I participate in where there's some bourbon and whiskey enthusiasts, and I posted the question to these people in this group. I said, I have spent too much money on whiskey and bourbon and ended up with things I don't like or I'm not real fond of. I like all of it, but there's some of it I like a lot better than others. And I said, these are the ones I like. I specifically listed the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select, and I listed the Eagle Rare. And they gave me a lot of really, really good advice. The first bit of advice they gave me is said, go to Google and do some digging and find out what the grain bill looks like for those whiskeys, how much corn they have in them, how much rye and how much malted barley they have in them, and look for other whiskeys and bourbons that have a similar grain bill. That was fantastic advice, because it turns out I like stuff that's on the sweeter side. It's kind of like my beer taste. I like maltier beers more than the hoppier beers. And the little conclusion I've drawn here is that the rye whiskeys are for the people that like the hoppy beers. The rye whiskeys are spicy, and the whiskeys that have higher content of rye in them have a little bit more bite. They have a bite kind of like a hoppy beer. And the guy that runs that other group recommended me specifically try Maker's Mark, because Maker's Mark is what they call a wheated bourbon. This has no rye in it. It's got corn, wheat, and malted barley. So I'm going to break the seal off of this bottle and see if I can get a pour going. And of course that tore and didn't get that all the way off.
Don't hurt yourself.
You know what?
Don't hurt yourself, John.
I'm a little bit.
You might have to get Tanya in there. Tanya, come help John.
That seal strip tore there. Let's see if I can get it off. It's coming. There we go. Look at that. How often do you see that? So yeah, but that tear piece tore off. I like the way these Maker's Mark bottles are wax top. That's kind of cool. So, well, it smells like bourbon. This Maker's Mark is 94 proof, and I just bought a pint of it. And that's another good piece of advice: is buy a pint when you can get it. But I can't always find a pint, so I'm going to give myself. I pour. People say I pour heavy. I like to pour about a 3-ounce, pour, and I go neat. I don't have I just do, room temperature, no ice.
Yeah, I like ice in mine.
This smells really sweet.
I really don't drink much whiskey anymore. I mean, I bought this the other day just because I saw you playing around with bourbon.
Well,
but I used to be big into scotch and whiskeys, and then I got older and I just started drinking a lot of red wine. But
this is pretty good. Maker's Mark is something I've been keeping on hand forever. I cook with it. That's one of the bourbons I use to cook with. So this particular expression is a little different than the standard Maker's Mark. It's aged slightly longer. It's the same mash bill as all the other Maker's Mark, but after they've gone through their regular aging process, they put what they term as 10 seared oak staves in the barrel, and they age it for an additional amount of time with that, which changes the flavor profile of it a little bit. And it's got there is an oaky vanilla flavor and aroma here, and a little caramel. It's really nice. It's smooth. It's really smooth. 94 proof is that's 47%, but this is it's rather smooth. It's a really mellow flavor.
yeah, I was going to say it's got to be kind of mellow, especially since there's no rye in it. The bourbons with a lot of rye in them, like you said, are kind of not really spicy. They're just more. They have a lot more higher palate, and you can really taste it. And it's not as smooth or as mellow as some of the other, aged or barrel, aged stuff like that. But definitely, like this one here it's got, you can really taste the rye.
Right.
Even compared to their regular Four Roses, their Four Roses is actually smoother and a little bit more mellow than the small batch one. So it's like a rye forward, like you said. So
okay. Yeah, this might make my list. I'm gonna have to have it. I'll have to drink this 2 more times or so before I figure out if it's a keeper. But this one's not offensive to me in any way.
Well, that's always good.
Well, I've got some of that Four Roses. I bought a bottle of the single barrel that I've had a couple of times. It's not bad. It's good, but it's not a rye whiskey. It's what I call a rye forward whiskey. It's I better call it a bourbon before somebody fusses at me. Yeah, I'm too new at this to worry about some. So, but anyway, yeah, it's got what I would say I call a higher than average rye content, and it's good though. And I bought a couple other bottles. I bought the Bullet, and I bought a 10-year. I bought a 10-year Bullet. The Michter's I bought that on a recommendation from our friend Stephen Hickey, and it's not bad, but it's slightly rye forward. It's one I will probably keep around also, but I've come along to the point where I'm still at 2. There's 2 keepers on my list, and one of them is going to be really difficult for me to get regularly. The Eagle Rare, all the Buffalo Trace stuff is hard to get here, except for I can get the Benchmark, but I'm not really impressed by the Benchmark, and I can get the one that they call White Dog, which is their moonshine. It's the pre-barrel version of that whiskey. It's what whiskey is before it goes into the barrel to be aged. But I don't care for that either. That's of no use to me. But I stumbled across the Eagle Rare a couple weeks ago, and I bought the 1 bottle of it that was in the store, and I haven't been able to find another one since. So that's the bottle I was hitting on pretty hard New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and I've got some left, and I'm not going to drink it. I'm going to hang on to it because right now that's my favorite. I like it even better than the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel, but I've got plenty of the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel. I went ahead and bought another bottle of that recently also, so I've got about a third of a bottle and a whole new one of that, but that's probably going to be my go-to. It's not going to be an everyday drink because it's still a $55 bottle. So, but for the stuff I don't drink every day. Anyway, I'm doing this tour.
I was going to say, you have other problems. You drink every day.
Darrin, don't let me come across as an alcoholic here because my mom might be watching again, and my mom fusses. We know my mom. But the Elijah Craig, I really like the Elijah Craig, and it's inexpensive. And but I can't get my hands on any expressions of that other than the small batch and the rye. I haven't been able to get a hold of a single barrel Elijah Craig yet, which I'd really like to get also. But this Maker's Mark's going to do. I'm pretty happy here.
Not, you said you don't like Scotch, right? You've never been a Scotch drinker.
I do like Scotch, but right now, since I've decided to take it seriously with the tasting, I'm sticking with just bourbon and whiskey for now because Scotch and Irish whiskey is a different animal. They're not really similar to these in flavor. There's a big difference in the flavor profile there because those are all malted barley.
Yeah.
that there's no corn, no rye in that, and it's smoked peat. You know, it's a different animal altogether. But yeah, I actually have some around here somewhere. I've got some Lafroig and some Talisker, and I've probably got some Glenlivet, but I don't have any of the expensive stuff. You know, the Glenlivet that I have it's probably a 12-year-old bottle.
Yeah.
I
was big. When I drank Scotch a lot, I really like the single malt. I would get choke back some, blends and dewars and stuff like that. But right. I preferred the single malts for sure, like the Glenlivet, the Glenfiddich, and the 12, 18-year-olds and stuff like that. So, but it gets expensive, just like anything. Anything that's really, really good, it's going to cost you, 50, 60, $100 plus.
Right. Yeah, it's expensive. My local ABC store has got they've got a bottle of Scotch in there that's priced over $3,000, and I don't remember what brand it is, but I'll try to snap a picture of that next time I'm in there. But anyway, guys, I want to tell you how I know Darrin. Darrin's been around in my social media clan since early on in the Kamado Guru forum, pre-Facebook. Darrin, did you have an acorn? Were you an acorn guy?
Yep. Yeah. That's when I found Kamado Guru. That's kind of where it led me, because I was looking at, Big Green Eggs, and actually I was looking at all kinds of different grills. I'd had, some cheap grills and smokers from Home Depot and Lowe's, the stuff that you buy that's, $100 that lasts you about a year before it rusts out. And I decided I wanted to start looking around and kind of getting more serious and get something that was going to last longer, that could do more, a little bit more versatile. So I kind of started looking around at Kamados, and I stumbled across Kamado Guru, and I'm kind of like you. I don't want to go out and spend $800 to $1,000 on something, not knowing if I'm going to like it. So, right. I was kind of looking around, maybe for a used Big Green Egg or something, but they still hold their value. So you're still paying $500-600 for a used one. And I'm, especially, my wife does, especially back then, she wasn't working. She was taking care of her kids, homeschooling. And so money was kind of tight. And so I stumbled across Kamado Guru and saw a lot of posts about the acorn. I think a lot of them were yours, but you had kind of, had a bunch of posts and reviews, and people had modded them and did all kinds of stuff with them. And, the whole thing was, at least I'm only spending $200. I can try this type of cooker out and see if it's something that I like. And then if I like it, I can upgrade. And if not, then I get rid of it and get something else.
Right. The Kamado Guru forum was born out of my purchase of that Acorn. And the reason I put that forum together is because the only other Kamado forum on the internet at the time was the Big Green Egg forum. And I had joined the Big Green Egg forum because I had planned to buy a big green egg. And the chain of events that led me to buy the Acorn first kind of let me fall out of favor with the Big Green Egg community, because those guys are all about the big green egg.
That's for sure.
I don't have anything. That's not a problem. I don't have a problem with that. But in that forum, if you're not green, you might as well just go away. They're not interested in you or what you're doing if you're not doing it on Green Grill, which is fine. It's a Big Green Egg forum, and I totally understand that. So I said I want to build something different. So I put the Kamado Guru forum together and I've been very adamant about this through the entire time I've been running that forum. Every Kamado owner is welcome in that forum. We're not a brand specific site, and there is a terribly low representation of Big Green Egg in that forum. The Big Green Egg people all do the Big Green Egg forum, and they do it on the Big Green Egg Facebook group and whatnot. But there's a few. I won't say there's none, but there are only a few. One of the guys that helps me moderate that forum is a Big Green Egg owner, and I'm all for that. We've got just about every brand of Kamado you can think of is represented over there in some way, shape, or form. There is a very large Kamado Joe audience there, but when you look at how many grills are sold, and Kamado Joe, I don't know this to be a fact, but I've recently been told that Kamado Joe has surpassed Big Green Egg in sales. I think that actually happened last year at some point. It happened sometime in 2020. And just the fact that there's a lot of people there that have that grills because they're selling that well. And a lot of people, I think I influenced a lot of people toward Kamado Joe whenever I got mine and hooked up with it, because I put the Acorn through its paces. I did all I thought I could do with it, and when I had done that, I was still wanting for more, and I decided at that point that I was going to reach out, and it paid off for me in a lot of ways. I wouldn't be here tonight probably if that hadn't been a good setup. But anyway, that's how I met Darrin, was through the Kamado Guru forum. And Darrin also, over time, outgrew his Acorn. And Darrin was the Big Joe your first one? Did you buy the Big Joe?
Yep, I got a black Big Joe at the Costco Roadshow. But I had the Acorn probably about 8 months, and it started to rust out already. And so that's kind of how I knew it wasn't really bad. It just started to rust, and I was like, I really like how this thing cooks, and I kind of figured it out, and I like this style of cooker. If I'm going to upgrade, I might as well try to sell this, get as much money as I can out of it before it starts to get bad, right. And then put that money towards a Kamado. And that's when the Kamado Joes were going at the Costco road shows really well. And they still had the black and red, and I decided to step up and get the Big Joe, the black Big Joe. And I actually love that grill. I put a lot through it, and I sold it before I moved to my new house here, and I had it 4.5, 5 years, I think, and I still got a good amount of money for it as much as I cooked on that thing. So, but I got plenty of use, and now I got a Classic too, and I love that just as much. So
right, see, you've turned into the same situation I'm in. You got more grills now than you know what to do with. You've got what all do you have now?
Well, and I just got rid of one of them again because I'm trying to keep where I only have five or so on there. because I don't want to take over the whole deck. I just built this deck last year when we moved in, and I told my wife I wouldn't take the whole thing because she wants an area to go out there and relax and all that. But I had a Camp Chef pellet grill, the Woodwind Wi-Fi with the Sidekick, sear thing, and it had the griddle and all that. But now I've got the Classic 2, which I really love. I've got a Camp Chef griddle, the 36-inch griddle, and I have a PK 360, and then I got a Hasty Bake gourmet charcoal grill. It's got the adjustable firebox that goes up and down. So, and now I got the Traeger. I got the Traeger Timberline. That's what I replaced the Camp Chef with. I just sold the Camp Chef and replaced it with the Traeger Timberline 850, which I really like that grill. I've only cooked on it, maybe 10 times so far, but I really like it. I like some things about it better than I did on the Camp Chef. The way that it's insulated and some of the other things that it has. There's some things that I miss about the Camp Chef, but I really like the Traeger Timberline as well.
Do you miss anything about that Camp Chef besides the easy fire pot clean out that it had?
I miss the Sidekick, because you could put I could sear stuff on that really quick when I needed to, but because it heated up a lot quicker than the flat top or any of the grills. But I've come to find out that I can heat the PK up with that grill gun. I can I can be up and cooking on a really hot flame in less than 5 minutes. So it really doesn't bother me as much.
The Sidekick's an add-on to that grill, right? It's not standard equipment on it.
You can buy it with it on there, or you can buy it without it. I mean, I think it costs maybe $150 more if you buy it with it on there. So it's really, you get a good deal if you buy the whole package. But with that Sidekick, you can put a pizza oven on it. You can put the griddle on it. It's a burner, a gas burner as well. You can put a grill or a sear box on it, so you can sear steaks and stuff on there. So it's actually kind of versatile, and that's about the only thing. I miss that a little bit, but I really like the Traeger a lot, and I wanted to put the Traeger in that spot, so that's what I did. So,
well, I can speak from experience on that Timberline 850 also. I've got one sitting out here that I've had for a while, and in my humble opinion, as far as general purpose pellet grills are concerned, I think that might be the Cadillac. As far as what I've had, I believe that it is. That's my third pellet grill. I started out, my first pellet grill was a Traeger. It was called a Little Texas Elite, and I bought it at what was sort of like a Traeger road show, but it was in a shopping mall instead of a Costco. It was actually the first time Tanya and I went to Atlanta together to meet with the Kamado Joe people. I ran into this guy at a mall on my way home, and we bought one off the floor, or we ordered it. And it was the bottom of the line pellet grill that Traeger has, but it was still I think I paid $7.99 for the kit that I got. That was the grill. It came with a bunch of pellets and a bunch of other stuff. But this was at least 7 years ago, and when I found out I was going to be getting the Yoder YS640, I gave that Traeger to my brother-in-law, and he's still using that grill today. That thing's still working. That pellet grill's got more miles on it than any pellet grill I've ever seen, and it's still working great. But that Traeger is something else. I like that double insulation, and one of the things that impresses me seriously about that 850 is the heft that those stainless steel grills.
Oh yeah, they're heavy
inside that.
Man,
None of the grills I have. Well, I take that back. The Napoleon gas grill I've got's got heavier grill grates in it than that, but it's those grill grates in the Traeger are incredible. I've had no problems out of that Traeger. It runs flawlessly, and yours is upgraded compared to the one I have. You've got the newer model that's got the D2 drivetrain or whatever they call that now. It's upgraded. They've upgraded several elements of that grill since mine. I don't remember what all the upgrades are, but my grill, that I've had zero problems with my Timberline 850. It's a great grill, and it does really well.
One of the things I like about it, it's the only pellet grill that I've seen that has the ability to do stage cooking, where you can have it programmed. They used to have it, I guess, in the app function, but now it's strictly on the on the grill itself. But you can have it to where, especially with the super smoke option it has on there, you can have it run for like 2 hours at a lower temperature with the super smoke mode, and then have it kick up like halfway through and automatically go to a higher temperature. And all the while it's monitoring the internal temperature. So you can have it notify you once it hits your internal temperature, but you can do multi-stage cooking, which I really like that option. And that's one of the things I like about the Anova Precision Oven is you don't have to worry about, okay, I got to go out there and set a timer in 2 hours when it gets to this and go change the grill. It does it automatically.
Right. I don't know why they took that functionality out of the app. I kind of enjoyed that because you could set up, I had a Boston butt program set up where I ran the super smoke mode at 200 degrees for 2 hours to get some extra smoke on it early. And then I would ramp the temperature up to 275 and run it there until I hit about 190 degrees. And then I would back the temperature back down to 225 and let it slowly sail up to about 205. And it was a really good program. It really worked well. But for whatever the reason, they took that out of the app. I don't know why. You can still program it from the control on the front of the grill, but that's about all it does. It still works, but like I said, I don't know why the app lost that functionality, but I didn't realize that it had lost that functionality till a long time after, because you know me, and I don't use the app.
Yeah.
I have an instant message in my Facebook message box from Man Cave Meals tonight. Somebody's asking me about the Pellet Joe and asking me if I've used the app on it, and I haven't. I don't know how I'm going to answer that question yet, because the Pellet Joe uses the Kamado Joe app. It uses the same app that runs the iCommand, but I haven't used the app to do anything yet. All I've used it for is to remotely look and see what temperature my grill's running at, because I haven't even put the meat probe on that grill yet. But I think I'm getting old, and that extra layer of technology between me and the grill sometimes I find slows me down. So I'm getting away from some of that. I still like the fireboard, but I just use it to keep the grill at a solid temperature. I rarely even put a meat probe on that. But yeah, we've got a lot of grills, you and I both. We don't have, I think the only thing we have in common right now is the Kamado Joe and the Traeger. No, I've got the PK360, so that's a really super nice charcoal grill. Have you cooked on that lately?
Yeah, that's what I do a lot of my searing on. And like I said, I'll do one of the things that I like that I got, a tip that I got from Meathead is, because I do a lot of sous vide cooking and mix it with the barbecue. So I will cook like pork chops or even steaks, and I will get the PK grill going quick with my grill gun. I can get that thing up heated, but I'll put the grill grates on, the Grill Grates brand grill grates, and I'll put pellets in the grooves, and they get smoking,
right? And
it gets that smoky flavor to the pork chops or the steak. So that's a trick that Meathead kind of, showed me or went over. He's got it on AmazingRibs.com. It's just a little trick that he kind of showed me to do that, to get a little smoke where you don't have to, throw the wood into the fire and all that. You can just throw them right on the grill grates. They get heated up, they get smoky. You put your steaks on there or your pork chops, and you got a little bit of smoke, and get your nice sear, and you're done. So
yeah, I read about that technique in Meathead's sous vide book. He put his I think it may be Kindle only, but I bought that when he put that out, and that technique was talked about in there, and I haven't had a chance to try it yet, and I need to do that, because I really think that would work well, and I agree with you. I think it would work better than putting smoke in the firebox on that grill. But
because they're right next to that, the pellets. I mean, the pellets are smoking and they're right on top of it, and it works. I mean, it's not super smoky, but it's just enough to where there's smoke on it, and that's the kind of thing I like about it.
When I'm high heat grilling, I don't care about smoke. That's why I'm not a huge fan of the reverse sear. I would much rather, I don't know, here's what it boils down to. I eat enough smoked food that I don't feel like everything I eat needs to have a smoke flavor to it.
I agree. I mean, even a lot of the stuff I cook on the grill, I don't want it smoky all the time. Right. So,
but I get enough of a grilled flavor profile when I'm cooking a steak. Even when I'm using the soapstone, it does the flavor profile is there that it's a grilled steak, even when I'm cooking on my soapstone, because even though I'm not exposing it to direct flame, that grill is full of the volatiles that come from burning the charcoal.
Yeah.
And it's getting that in there. That's interacting with the liquid, with the fat, the moisture that's on that steak, and it's leaving a flavor behind that you do not get from pan searing a steak on your stove and then finish it in the oven. You can tell the difference in those two steaks. And I just don't feel the need to smoke everything. And I've done reverse sear, and I appreciate what it can do, but it's just not my jam. I like the quality of the sear that I get by searing the cold meat and searing it first. There's a difference there too. The crust you get when you sear something that's already cooked is different than the crust you get when you sear raw meat. So, and I'm sure you can tell the difference in that too. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we dig into some sous vide technique. But,
and here's the thing I want everybody to understand, and I run into this all the time because I got my own Facebook groups and stuff, and I'm sure you run into this too. And I've talked about this on my podcast. Is people always want to know what's the best way to do something, or what's the best way to cook this or that, and I try to avoid that question or not question, but try to lead them into a different way, because everybody has different tastes and flavors, and they like different things. And my big thing is I like chicken cooked 100 different ways. I like fried chicken. I like roasted chicken. I like barbecue chicken. I like chicken cacciatore. So to say what's the best way to do something, I kind of just say it's up to you, because you have your own personal taste. There's a good way. There's a good way. There's a better way, but best is all, what you like. So
exactly.
And that's why I said people will argue about, well, reverse sear is better than pre-sear, or reverse sear is better than sous vide. Well, it's just different. It might be somebody might like it better. Somebody might like that better. A little bit, but are you going to if somebody threw a reverse sear steak in front of you, you're not going to go, I hate them, I'm not going to eat that. All right. I mean, it's still good. I mean,
it's good. It's good when it's done right.
Yeah.
It sure is. And, it is all about preference. And I should have said that. I'm sure I probably didn't, because my bias, everything I say is influenced by my own personal taste.
Everybody's like that, but that's
I don't mean to come across as that I'm telling you the right way to do it. It's the way I prefer, and I am accepting of everything. I have tried everything I can think of at least once, with one exception. And I'm going to hold back on that right now, because I'm going to do this in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to put a video on Man Cave Meals of a different way to cook a steak that I hope is going to come out good. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Maybe I'll do a live stream of that cook when I get ready to do it. Have you cooked anything this week, Darrin?
Oh yeah, I cook every day. I cook all the food here, and I know, like you, I cook all the food. I don't think Tanya does a lot of cooking, does she?
She does a good bit of cooking. She does more than I give her credit for. She cooks at the most critical time of week for me. And when I get out of bed on Sunday, it's usually about anywhere between noon and 1:30. in the afternoon because I just got home at 7 o'clock in the morning from an overnight shift. Tanya has lunch ready. She has food ready. And that, to me, is my favorite meal of the week, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter what she's done. She's done a lot of great things. I never know what I'm getting until I get up. But it's always the best meal I get all week is that meal because it's between my work shifts and it's always good. But this week I didn't do a whole lot of cooking this week. I did video wise. I did the smoked Cheez-It video, and I did a little different process on that than I've done in the past. I ran into that idea in the Traeger community a long time ago, and what they do is spread these Cheez-It crackers out on a baking sheet. They spray it with a mist of cooking spray, and then they shake ranch dressing mix on top of it with a little cayenne pepper, and then they smoke it at, I don't know, 225 for 30 minutes to an hour. That's good. Those are amazing. I love those. But I did it a little different this time. I took my Cheez-Its and put them in a mixing bowl, put some olive oil in it, tossed them in that olive oil, put a little Worcestershire in there, tossed that, and then put in some of that Atlanta Grill Company Prime seasoning blend, which is a lot of bold flavor. And I smoked mine for about 90 minutes at 200 degrees on the pellet, Joe. And I really like these things. They're flavor bombs to the point where you can't eat a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
I actually want to do it again, and I'm probably going to cut the prime to about half of what I put on it to mellow those out a little bit. But they're amazingly good. And then I did a couple racks of pork spare ribs yesterday. Got that video published today. I wanted to make a video that was a basic video on pork spares, on how to prep a rack of pork spares, how to make the simple breakdown to a St. Louis cut on those, and just a basic technique to cook them. It seems that most people prefer baby back ribs, it seems. And as far as flavor is concerned, I like baby back ribs as well, but I like the bigger ribs occasionally. They got, something with more meat on it. But the pork spares taste a little different than the baby backs. They have a little bit bolder flavor. They're not quite as sweet as the baby backs seem to be. But that was the two video projects I did this week. And I'm still sitting on, I think I want to try to do something seafood this coming week. I just haven't made up my mind what it's going to be yet.
Yeah, I don't. That's one thing I don't do a lot of videos on is seafood, and I gotta make a concentrated effort to do more of it because we don't eat a whole lot of it. It's expensive and it doesn't last very long when it sits in the refrigerator. And once it's frozen, it doesn't really taste that good. So I got to do some more of that. But I've cooked a few things this week and I've done a couple of videos. One of the videos I just got done was bottom round roast. And with sous vide, I do a lot of the sous vide and barbecue mix. And one of the things I really like about using the sous vide and mixing it with the smoker and the grill is that you can take these cheaper cuts, tougher cuts like, top round, bottom round, beef ribs, brisket, and you can actually take the sous vide and use it to cook them at a longer time with a lower temperature. Make it like a medium rare, which is what I did with this bottom round roast. I cooked it at 135 degrees, but I cooked it for 48 hours. And what it does is it breaks down, makes it more tender. Then when you throw it on the smoker, you get the smoke bark to it. And then it's still medium rare. And then it's super tender. It's not something like, you usually would have to just cut it really, really thin to be able to chew it. So you could actually cut it into thicker cuts and actually be able to chew it. So I did one of those. I just threw some beef back ribs in the sous vide, and I'm going to cook those up tomorrow because especially with all the prime ribs that got eaten over the holiday season, a lot of people will take the ribs that are attached to it, and then, if they don't cook them with the roast, they'll toss them in the freezer and eat them later. And that's usually what I do. I like to eat the ribs separate from the roast. So I'm going to show people what they can do with the back ribs because they're a lot different than, short ribs or plate ribs or, the big dino bones. There's not a lot of meat to them. They're more like a spare rib because there's just no, not a whole lot of meat. They come off of the prime rib or the ribeye primal. So,
well, Darrin, what's your I know this is a hard question to answer. What are your top 3 favorite meats to cook via sous vide?
Probably beef ribs is one of my top. Especially the short ribs, because and even depending on how I want to cook it, with brisket is also a good one. And I also like doing chicken. One of the things that sous vide can do is it can cook it to a set temperature, and it keeps a lot of the moisture in the meat because you're cooking it in a bag and you're in a water bath. There's no evaporation when you're cooking it. The water that's coming out of the meat is coming out because of the protein strands are getting contracted, and of course it's getting pushed out of the meat, but it's still staying there in the bag, and it only will contract a certain amount because you're cooking it to a perfect temperature, to exactly, let's say 145 degrees. I want to cook that chicken at 145 degrees, and since I'm cooking it for 4 or 5 hours, it's going to get pasteurized, so I don't have to worry about salmonella or anything like that, even though I'm cooking it at under 165. But the meat's going to stay a lot more juicy. When I take that out of the bag and I toss it on the pellet grill or the smoker, I can cook it at a hotter temperature, and since it's kind of like the stall, like evaporative cooling, the internal temperature of the meat doesn't rise as fast as if it was sitting on the smoker the whole time. So it kind of sits there for a good 15 or 20 minutes while the skin is getting crisp and, finishing off. And then when it finally starts to rise, you can take it off and have a nice finished, super juicy chicken with a nice skin and got a little bit of smoke to it. And so I really like doing that. That's one of the things that I like to show people is just you cut into that chicken and it just gushes out the juices because it didn't lose a lot in the smoker. When it's when you cook it in the smoker, you're cooking in air. Everything in there evaporates and gets pushed out of the meat. So pulled pork is also another good one too, because you can take the bag juices after it's done cooking in the sous vide. All that juice that got pushed out of the pork gets in the bag, and then when you're done with the smoker, you can actually dump it back into the pork when you pull it, and so you don't lose any of that moisture that you would have lost when you're cooking it on the smoker. Now, I say that, but I like cooking things just on the smoker too. So that goes back to that point I was making. When you combine these things, you're actually creating something different than you would create just on a smoker or just in a sous vide. So, okay,
Darrin, one thing I want to interrupt you with right here. One thing I haven't done yet, and Mark Ellsworth has called me out on it. Tell these people here who might not know who you are where to find you on Facebook and YouTube. And I will also, guys, I will come back and I will put a comment on this live feed after it's done, and I'll give you links to Darrin's Facebook and YouTube. Darrin, tell them where to go.
fireandwatercooking.com is my main website, and you'll be able to find my podcast. I have a weekly podcast where been doing that for almost 2 years. John's been on there a couple times. I've had Malcolm Reed. I've had Stephen Reichlin. I've had Kenji Lopez Alt on. I've had Meathead from Amazing Ribs on a couple times. I've had some pretty big guests and some pretty small guests, but usually talk a lot about barbecue and sous vide and a little bit of both, a little bit of everything. I'm not really just locked into just talking about sous vide and barbecue. It just so happens that's what I kind of focus on. But the website, you can also find my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel, Fire and Water Cooking. The Facebook group, I have a Facebook group, Fire and Water Cooking, Sous Vide and Barbecue. Also the Facebook page. So if you just type in Fire and Water Cooking, you'll be able to find pretty much everything I have on there. I also just published a book on Amazon. You can find my book, Fire and Water Cooking, on Amazon. That goes into sous vide and barbecue and how to mix it. I kind of go and I do like a 30,000 foot overview of barbecue and then sous vide and then how to mix them together. And then I got about 40 or so recipes on the techniques and stuff that I've learned over the few years about how to put them together. So
yeah, and I apologize, Darrin. I should have opened up this
that's okay.
live stream with. Like I told you, I didn't have an agenda tonight. I said we were just going to come in here and go off the cuff. And but yeah, I'll make sure that I post a comment back on this. So all you who are watching, I'll have links for you to get to all of Darrin's stuff. And I have Darrin's book, and there's a lot of great information in there. So
a lot of it's not something that I came up with. A lot of this is just stuff I've learned, and just like you know, I like to learn things and then share them with people and show them what I learned and how I learned how to mix the stuff together and all that. And I'm not one to ever say that the way I do it is the exact the way everybody should do it. I'm just show you, here's how I do it. Here's how I learned this. Here's what I found out. Now you go and experiment and try stuff on your own. And that's kind of how I look at it. When people ask me, a big thing that comes up in the forums and stuff as well is, should I smoke before sous vide or after sous vide? And I always tell people, try it both ways and then find out what you like. I prefer to smoke it after sous vide because I know how to do it a certain way. I chill the meat, get it on there wet so that the cold wet meat attracts the smoke more. But if you want to smoke it first and then sous vide it, you're more than welcome to. Find out what works for you, but here's how you can do that. So
okay, you said that your top three were beef ribs, beef brisket, and chicken. Most of the people who are here with us tonight are probably more familiar with a brisket cooking process than the other two. So tell us in a kind of a step-by-step procedure what you would do, and give me the timeline and the temperatures of what you would do with a brisket.
All depends on how I want it to be finished. And I'll give you an example of that. I just did a video I posted last week. My video was I did a medium rare brisket. Okay, and usually in the barbecue world, you tell somebody medium rare brisket, they look at you, cross-eyed, because they know brisket's tough, and to make it medium rare, it's going to be tough unless you cook it the way I cook it. So, if I want a medium rare brisket, and this comes back to the point of, I do things that, I mix sous vide and barbecue to try to make something I can't make using those cooking methods by themselves. So this is a great example that I can take a brisket, full packer. It's a small full packer. I bought a steer a couple months ago, and I had the briskets were kind of smaller. So I took this full packer brisket, seasoned it up with salt and pepper, put it in the bag, and I cooked it in the sous vide at 134 degrees for right at, I think it was right at 56 hours or 52 hours or something like that. And when you're cooking sous vide, you don't have to, not like in a grill where you got to go look at it and make sure it's cooking. You put it in there and you just let it run, and you don't even have to bother checking it. You just let it run for 52 hours. And then when the 52 hours is up, you take it out of the bag. And with something like a brisket, since it's really thick and I want it to stay at the medium rare, you chill it down as much as you can. So you put it in an ice bath for a good hour or so. So it brings the internal temperature down to 70, 80 degrees. Take it out of the bag, leave it wet, put a little bit more seasoning, salt, pepper, whatever you want to put on there, brisket rub, put it on the smoker, and then slowly bring it back up to the temperature that I cooked it at, which was 134 degrees again. Now, since I put it on wet and cold, it's going to attract, a good amount of smoke, make a nice bark. After 40, 50 minutes or so, I'll spritz it with some more water so it can develop some more of that smoke and bark. And then usually within 2 hours, it's back up to the temperature I cooked it at, 134, 135. And then I take it out and cut it up, and it's super tender, medium rare, juicy brisket.
Okay, well, it's that technique is also one of the things I like to say there is it creates a process where you can have consistently, or would you agree with the idea that that process will give you consistently repeatable results every time you use it.
Yeah, pretty much because of the fact that when you're cooking at sous vide, you're cooking it at an exact temperature. And that's one thing people don't really understand. When you're cooking in a smoker or even in your oven, your oven may say it's 350 degrees, but since it's air, it could be 350 degrees where the thermometer is, and usually the thermometer is off anyway. But inside that oven, the temperature is variable throughout. And since air is not a good conductor of heat and transferring of heat into meat, it's a hit or miss of what how long it's gonna take and all that, and what the exact temperature is. When you're cooking in a water bath, you're using water, which if it says it's 140 degrees, it's 140 degrees. And since it's water, it's going up against the meat and it's transferring the heat into that meat a lot easier than the air would be. So you got precise temperature cooking into that meat that you can't get into a smoker. So you can get a more consistent result that way, because when you take it out, it's cooked to that exact temperature. Now, you could overcook it by leaving it in the smoker too long, or cooking it too hot, or not paying attention to it, just like anything else. But that first part, that sous vide part, you're cooking it to that exact temperature, and you're going to get a pretty consistent result.
Right. All your tenderization process is happening during that sous vide cycle instead of in the smoker. One of the things I talked here on the live stream recently, I don't remember exactly which week it was, I had a discussion about the different types of heat and how the different types of heat interact with the meat. I basically went through Meathead's agenda and described the difference between convective, conductive, and radiant heat, and why one's more efficient at delivering heat than the other. And this sous vide technique is conductive heat, and you have your meat completely encased in a 140 degree or whatever you set your sous vide temperature at environment, and it's transferring that heat much more efficiently to the meat than it would be if it was in an air environment. In a 140 degree air environment, you couldn't pull that off in 52 hours. It would probably take a week.
Yeah, and the biggest example of that is what he uses is if you take your hand, stick it in a 200 degree oven, just the air, you can leave it in there for a good bit before it burns. But if you touch it up against the side of the oven, it's going to burn you right away. So
this is a good example of something I have talked about here before, and that's this tenderization of barbecue meats like brisket and pork butts. It can happen at a lower temperature. You don't have to take a pork butt to 200 plus degrees to have pulled pork.
Right.
And a couple of the things I've done, I haven't done the sous vide video content, but like a while back I did the 24-hour brisket and the 24-hour butt, and did those at 190 degrees. And that was in the smoker, though. That wasn't in a sous vide bath. And people, there's two schools there. People don't understand that. How is that brisket or how's that butt ever going to get done if it never gets above 190 degrees? And the answer is the time. The tenderness happens for two reasons. It happens because of heat and a time factor. And you can get the same result. Well, I won't say the same result. You'll get a similar result over time that you would get by having the additional heat. And that brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk specifically about on sous vide is when you talk about your medium rare brisket. Let's say that brisket's cooked to 130. It's cooked at 135 degrees for 2.5 days. Is that a reasonable?
Yeah, just say even at 48 hours, it's probably still good. But like anything, you can go a little bit longer and tenderize it a little bit more. So just say 2 days.
Well, when you pull that brisket off after you've given it some smoke and whatnot, and you slice that brisket just like you'd slice any other brisket, when you got that strip of brisket there and you lay it over your finger, it's going to double over and hang off your finger just like, a smoked brisket that had been smoked up to 205. The tenderness is there. The color of the meat just doesn't look the same, and that's what throws a lot of people off. Am I right there?
Yeah, but it's also going to be a lot moister, believe it or not. Even though, when you get a brisket, 205, the last part of the cook, usually they wrap it, right? And one of the reasons they wrap it is so that it can concentrate it's not losing as much moisture, and that moisture stays inside that aluminum foil or butcher paper and actually concentrates and actually kind of does a sous vide type cook to it to let that meat tenderize more. Right. Because it's taking that moisture that's leaving the meat and actually keeping it in there to actually cook it in there. So they're actually kind of almost sous videing it at the end, no matter what. They're just the first part of it, they're cooking it in there. But it's still getting really tender. You're going to have a little bit more moisture in there because you're not losing as much moisture because you're not cooking it in the air for as long, and it's not evaporating away. And it's kind of, like I said, the hotter the temperature is on the meat, the more moisture gets squeezed out because the muscle fibers contract more. And if I was doing a brisket sous vide and I wanted more of a traditional doneness, like a well done, my max temperature on that would be like 150 degrees in the sous vide for 48 hours. So I would get that traditional, well done looking meat, but still be able to get it tender and not cook it up to the 200. So I'm retaining more moisture, and I'm still breaking down the collagen and the connective tissue and all that, and getting that gelatin that you would normally get when you're cooking it to 205.
So if some of the people that are with us tonight want to try sous vide who haven't done it before, tell everybody what they have to have. What kind of equipment do you need to pull this off?
You don't really need a whole lot. I mean, I would always tell them to start off small and do a lot of research. Don't just try to do one thing and do it one way and then try to, just say it doesn't work, because I see a lot of that. And, people will try to do it on a steak or something, and they don't really do it the right way. They try it once and they go, it doesn't work, and they give up on it. I would say, you can get a good circulator now for $80. I recommend, if you're just starting out, get the Inkbird, because it does have Wi-Fi. It's got enough power, and it's cheap enough to where you're not spending a whole lot of money. You can actually use a stock pot or a cooler to actually cook in with for a water bath. You don't have to go out and spend a whole lot of money. I mean, that's pretty much all you need is a circulator and something to cook it in. You can use Ziploc bags and use the water displacement method, to put it in, or a vacuum sealer. So you really don't need a whole lot of equipment to do it. It can be done really cheap.
So you can get into sous vide in an experimental way for less than $100.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Like the Inkbird, and if I'm not mistaken, you got to watch those guys because they run sales pretty regularly.
Oh yeah, you can get it sometimes for $60-$70. So I mean, the one thing I would say, make sure if you're going to buy something on Amazon, don't just look for the cheapest thing out there, because a lot of those, the temperatures might not be right. There's a lot of them out there that are just made by cheap Chinese companies that don't stand behind their stuff. So just look for at least look at the reviews and see if they've got a lot of them, and that they're decent. But I recommend the Inkbird. I do a lot with the Anovas as well, because Anova's been in the business for a long time, and I know most of their products got a 2-year warranty on it, and they'll replace it.
So what do you do anything with sous vide that doesn't involve meat?
Yeah, I actually cook vegetables and stuff on it. I do mostly meat because that's where it really shines. But you can cook, potatoes. You can cook carrots, asparagus, a lot of different vegetables. But one of the things with vegetables and meat proteins, they cook differently. So with vegetables, usually you're cooking it at one temperature, like 190 degrees, 185 to 190 degrees. You can't cook potatoes at 150 degrees in the sous vide, it will never cook because the cellular structure is different than on meat. So you could actually throw potatoes in at 150 degrees and sit there for 2 weeks and take them out, and they're still raw. So
I found a couple of odd things that I like using sous vide for that don't involve meat particularly, and one of them is hard-boiled eggs. You can hard-boil eggs to any consistency you like,
yeah,
just by doing it at the right temperature in a sous vide bath. It takes longer. It's not going to be a 12 or 13 minute hard-boiled egg. It might go as long as an hour, but if you want a hard-boiled egg, you can do it. You can really pick and choose what that yolk's going to feel like when you're done with it by what temperature you do the sous vide.
If you go to Serious Eats, I know Kenji's got a big article that he did on eggs, and he actually will take it from all different kinds of temperatures and show you the doneness at each temperature and what it looks like. So
there, I'm sure.
But Kenji did a whole big long article and with pictures and everything, and that's usually where I send people to show you what it actually can do. You know, how it's that exact temperature cooking that it's not going to go past that. But one thing I want to let people know is, because I'll always hear this, you know, especially with people who are new to it. Somebody will say, well, you can't overcook with sous vide because you're cooking to that exact temperature. Well, it's true to an extent. You know, like if you're cooking a medium rare and you cook it at 132 degrees, it'll still be medium rare, but you can overcook it to where it gets too tender and it turns to mush. So, and I've done that. I've done that a couple times. I actually did the first leg of lamb I did. I thought, you know, leg of lamb, it's usually kind of tough, and I think I'll take it out to 12 hours. Well, I took it out and it looked perfect. You know, I cut into it and it looked perfect, but I took a bite and it just kind of melted in my mouth like mush.
The first failure I had with sous vide was ribeyes, and it was because it wasn't because it wasn't perfectly cooked. It was because it was too tender when I was done with it. Salt is a tenderizer, and that's the thing you got to be careful with. I do like to season meats in the sous vide bag where that seasoning gets a chance to go to work, but you have to be careful about how much of it you use. Salt will over tenderize a ribeye in a hurry, and one of the best things you can do with a steak, in my opinion, via ribeye or via sous vide, is to get it out of the sous vide bath as soon as you know that it's reached the temperature you've got that you want to get to, or on a ribeye anyway.
Yeah, that's another thing. It depends on the steak. If it's a fillet or ribeye, something that's already tender, you don't need a whole lot of time. You know, 2 hours or so is about all you really need. You just need it to get up to your temperature all the way through. Now with a top sirloin, flank steak, stuff that's a little bit less tender. I mean, and then you get into your, London broil or top round, stuff like that, and you can go much longer. But that's where it really shines too. So I can take a top sirloin and make it just as tender as a fillet by cooking it a little bit longer in the sous vide.
Okay, yeah, and that's another thing I want to talk about. One of the things I did learn from you about sous vide is how to make that steak out of chuck roast. And that, for me, has been one of my favorite things to do via sous vide. Chuck roast is tough. That's a meat that they sell to cook in a crock pot. It needs to be cooked all day. But I think you did a video on it, maybe where you took a chuck roast and you cooked it at a medium rare temperature at 131 or 132 for was it 18 hours or was it 36 hours?
36.
Do you remember?
Yeah, it's 36.
36 hours at 130 degrees, and then I took that chuck roast out and I let it sit for a while to let it kind of relax and rest, and then I cut it into steak portions and took that thing out to the grill and seared both sides of it, and I had steaks on my plate that had the consistency of about a New York strip. The tenderness level on that chuck roast cooked medium rare was like a New York strip. It was not tough at all. It didn't taste I won't say that it tasted like a strip. It still has a flavor profile it's different. It's the best I can say. It doesn't taste like chuck roast, but it doesn't taste like a New York strip. It's somewhere in the middle there because,
Yeah.
I seasoned it with salt, pepper, and garlic like I would a steak. I didn't season it with Worcestershire sauce, onions and carrots, and maybe some beef stock like I would have if I'd have cooked it in a crock pot. So it doesn't have the pot roast taste, but it doesn't taste like a steak, but it's good. The bottom line is it's good, and it's a great way to put a good steak on the table at $6 a pound instead of $12 or $13
Well,
a pound.
and one of the reasons it tastes different is because with a chuck roast, you got more connective tissue and collagen in there that you're breaking down in that longer time. That it's still got that different flavor. Plus you still got the myoglobin in there because it's still medium rare, and you got more juices in it because you didn't cook it to death. Cook it well done. So you got some different things in there that you don't have in a New York strip. New York strip's kind of lean. You got that little bit of a fat, part on there, but in that chuck roast, it's more marbled with fat and connective tissue and grizzle that breaks down when you're cooking it for a long period of time in the sous vide that you normally wouldn't get. So,
right. Well, what I'm going to wind down with tonight is the gadget for the week, and I figure since we're talking about sous vide, I might as well talk about. This is my sous vide circulator. I have the Anova or the Anova. How do they pronounce
Anova.
that, Darrin? Anova. Okay. Well, at least I'm saying it correctly now. I had, before I got this one, I had their first one, which was their basic model that did not have Wi-Fi, and I think it retailed at what, $119, somewhere along in there. And I bought a second one on Darrin's recommendation last year to give to my mom for Christmas. I bought an Inkbird, and my mom still has yet to cook anything sous vide, but she uses hers for what I mainly use mine for, and that's reheating meat. All this meat you guys see me cooking, a lot of that gets vacuum sealed and ends up in my mom's freezer. She eats it, and she uses the sous vide circulator to reheat it. If I give her a piece of prime rib that I've vacuum sealed, she'll put it in a sous vide bath at 135 degrees until it reheats, and she's got a perfectly reheated piece of prime rib there that's not overcooked. I reheat pulled pork that's vacuum sealed, and I do it at about 165 or 170, and I do the same thing with brisket and ribs. So that's another reason, if nothing else, that you want a sous vide circulator, is because you can properly reheat meats that you've put in the freezer that are already cooked.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
a really big.
It's much better than doing it in the microwave or doing it in an oven, or you can do that kind of reheating in a hot water bath on your stovetop, but it's better to do it at a lower temperature that's more easily manageable. This guy right here, I bought it. This is another thing that I think Darrin caused me to spend money. See, guys, I'm not the only one out here causing people to spend money. This is the Anova Pro, and this guy, when it first came out, it was selling at $399. Darrin, is that correct?
It's still selling at $399, but they go through sales where they'll drop it to $200. So
I got this one for $199 when you told me it was on sale, and I was looking to buy another one because I wanted to give my mom the Anova that I had because it's a little simpler to use, it's a little more intuitive, and my mom has no trouble figuring out how to set that one up. And I decided to go ahead and upgrade to this one. This one's a little more powerful than the older model that I had, but also I have this guy. This is the Anova 12-liter sous vide container, and I have the 16-liter one. See, Darrin made me spend that money also. He told me about that, and I didn't need a 16 liter. I only wanted a 12, but they didn't have the 12. But right after I bought the 16, of course they come out with the 12. So I had to buy it. It's got this rack that sits in the top of it that makes it real easy for you to keep your vacuum seal bags submerged under the water. And there's this lid that fits on top of it. It's got a hole that the Sous-Vide Circulator fits right down through on the end of the container. The 12-liter version of that has this, is this neoprene, Darrin, or silicone?
That's silicone, I think.
The 16-liter version has the acrylic one that you can see through, and I've got it put away. I don't ever really need one that big, but
well, you know,
this is
I actually I told them to not, sell that one yet because you were going to buy the bigger one. So after you bought the bigger one, I said, okay, you can release the smaller one now. He'll buy the other one.
I knew that about you, Darrin. So yeah, for all you people that think I'm the only one out there causing people to spend money, I'm not. There's plenty of people that cause me to spend money too, and Darrin's one of them.
Well, and so, just like barbecue, you can spend as little or as much money as you want to on toys. That's for sure.
It's like when people ask me, how many grills do you have, John? I answer all the same way. I've got more than I need, but not as many as I'd like to have.
Well, I got people that come over and they'll see my patio and they go, well, how many grills do you need? I said, well, how many ever I have plus one. Always. It's always plus one.
Right.
I could always use more. I could always use one more. So.
But and one other minor gadget that I want to show you tonight is something I used last week. Last week I told you guys about the live stream I did on the no thermometer cook. This thing right here is made by a company called Joby, Joby. They make all kinds of cool little tripod gadgets. But what this is a tripod mountable phone holder. And this guy this is what I use to do my live stream using my telephone last week. This guy fits on the phone, and these little holes right here, this threaded hole, you've got one where you can mount it this way, or another one where you can mount it in the other orientation if you want to. Allows you to stick your phone on a tripod. And this is called I looked up what this model was called. I bought it at Best Buy. If you do a Google search for tripod phone holder, you'll find these. You guys can do this too. You can hook your phone up and you can live stream. You can come on Facebook and do the exact same thing I'm doing right now with your telephone. Or you can share some of your cooks. You can make little videos with your phone that you can upload. A lot of you guys do uploads anyway. I see a lot of you guys will post a video clip, but if you want to post something that's longer, get a little cheap tripod and get a little cheap tripod phone holder, and you guys can share your video content. I'd like to see a lot more people sharing video content.
Yeah.
And Darrin makes a lot of video. Darrin, don't you use a phone fairly exclusively to make your video?
My iPhone, it's got a 4K camera on here. No reason for me to buy anything else. I mean, I can.
Darrin uses his telephone, and this is not a video camera.
Yeah. But see, this has got a 4K video camera built into it, so I can use that. And it goes right up into my photos, so I can access it from my Mac. I just download it to edit it, and it makes it really easy. I mean, I've considered buying one of those or something like that, but I don't really see having to spend the money. But the phone works just great for me. So.
And
now you're not the only one that does it. I've seen other guys, they've got like 4 or 5 cameras and they've got setups to where they got all different angles, but I'm never going to be that fancy. I'm not going to be a full production.
I tell people the same thing. I'm a one-man production company when it comes to my video. I'm one guy. I've got one camera and one tripod. I'm not going to be giving you multiple camera views. I could do all that, but all that money that I would have to spend to do that is not going to change the content that I'm delivering.
Exactly.
It might make it look nicer. It might make me feel more like I'm on the Food Network than on YouTube, because if I can give you multiple camera angles and be toggling throughout those on the video, it might look cooler. It's going to cost me a lot more money, and where it's really going to hurt is in the production, the post-production
time. The editing time.
It really makes it. When I shoot a video, it takes me a while, obviously, to shoot a video. It makes the cook process longer because I've got a plan for the video. I've got to know when I'm going to have my camera where and when it needs to be running. But my post-processing, once I have all the videos shot, I've been doing this for so long that I can have just about any of my videos post-processed in a half an hour or less. If I go to multiple camera views, if I'm running 2 or 3 cameras, I'm gonna add a factor of 1 for each camera that I'm using. Probably if I'm using 2 cameras, it's gonna take me twice as long to edit it. If I'm using 3 cameras, it's going to take 3 times as long. And I've thought about it. There's no reason I can't do it. The only reason I don't do it is because I would rather not spend as much time sitting in front of the computer.
And with me, I'm doing a podcast too. I'm doing other things besides just shooting a YouTube video. So I don't really want to spend an extra 2 hours in editing a video to get 3 different angles that I don't think is going to benefit, the viewers. They're not there to look at. Oh, I want to see that from the bottom view, and they're there to see what are you cooking, how are you cooking it, give me the recipe, and I can move on.
Give them credit though. The people that do that do a great job of it. They're good at it. Justin from Baby Back Maniacs, one of my favorite people when it comes to post-production and the quality of his video content. He makes it entertaining. He's giving you multiple camera views. He's got things happening when they should be happening. Whenever there's a beat dropping on the soundtrack, you're going to have a video change or something interesting happening at that point. It's all great post-production, and it does make the video more entertaining to watch.
Well, with Justin though, he only does like 1 video a month, so
I'm putting out 1 to 2 videos a week, and I'm not going to sit in front of a computer that long. So, but that's what that boils down to. But Darrin, before we wrap up, I just remembered you mentioned this, and now Tom Cleveland has brought it up also. Talk about the Anova precision oven.
The Anova.
Tell us about.
Well, you got one because I made you spend that money too.
You did. You may see right there, guys. What I spent. Did I spend $700 nearly by the time I got it delivered?
Yep.
It was $5.99 plus I paid a good bit to get it shipped.
It's $700 with shipping and tax.
I can't speak intelligently about it yet because I haven't used it enough to do what I want to do with it. I bought that oven because I wanted a steam oven to do bread in, and I haven't even gotten around to doing that yet. The only thing I've done where this oven's given me an advantage so far is I am working on a process, hopefully, that I'm going to be able to make this oven give me finished, excellent quality with crisp skin baked potatoes in 30 minutes instead of an hour.
Actually, that's one of my favorite things to make with it is the baked potatoes. So, but yeah, I mean, I've had mine for almost a month and a half now, maybe a little closer to 2 months, and I love playing around with it. It is if people aren't familiar with what a combi steam oven is, up until recently, they've mostly been in restaurants. They're high end. The ones in the restaurants usually cost between $10,000 to $50,000. They have to have a direct water hookup. They have to have the higher electricity hookup, like a dryer outlet, because they're big, huge things. But they do a lot of different things. They can actually cook sous vide in them because they produce steam, and you can control the amount of steam that goes into it. You can control a lot of different factors with this thing. But it also, with the Anova precision oven, it shrinks it down to where it can do a lot more, because now you can replace your convection oven. You can replace your microwave if you wanted to. You can do baking in it. A lot of the baking, the bakeries use steam in their ovens anyway, because it produces a really good product. So just like Souveed started in the restaurants, and when it was really expensive. I mean, Sous-Vide circulators used to be, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 all the time, and then nobody really had them at home. They were making them out of other things, crock pots and what have you. The combi ovens get started in the restaurant, and they're very expensive, but now they're starting to make these steam ovens to where you can buy them and bring them home. And the Anova precision oven is one that actually, the first one that can actually sit on your counter. That's can do a lot of not everything that the ones in the restaurant can do, but a bunch of stuff. And one of the things it can do is actually cook sous vide in the oven. So
it's about the size of a typical microwave.
Yeah.
It's a little larger than my Breville Smart Oven Air, but it's about the same size as my microwave, and it'll hold a 9x13 will go in there easily with room to spare. So
yeah,
I don't remember exactly what the dimensions in there are, but it'll hold stuff. And
I cooked, actually a 16-pound turkey in mine.
Yeah,
so.
And didn't you do video on that?
Yeah.
Or did you do a video? Okay, Tom now says, he's the one that asked about this and reminded me. He says it's a $700 baked potato oven. He says, okay, I'm ordering one now. But let me tell you,
it does a lot more than that.
Tom Cleveland doesn't have any problem spending some money. Tom, let's talk about that pellet grill you're sitting on. When was the last time you fired that thing up? Tom has the Yoder 1500, which is a monster pellet grill. He's got a couple Kamado Joes also. But anyway, the steam oven, I believe the steam oven, let me tell you, I'm in love with my Breville Smart Oven Air because of all the functionality that oven has. It's a warming oven. I can set it at any temperature I want. I can do the exact same thing on this Anova. It can be used as a proofing oven. I can set it low enough where I can proof dough in there. I like to proof when I'm baking bread. I like to use the proofing oven, and I like to set it at about 100 degrees because it helps me rise my dough quicker, and I can do that in this oven with steam. And with steam, it's not really critical that I have that dough covered with plastic, because I'm not going to create a dried out skin on the dough if I want to use steam there. But I haven't done any searing. I take that back. I cooked a dish of macaroni and cheese in this oven right after I got it because I wanted to see how well it was going to brown, and I messed it up because I didn't set the oven up right. I set it up using convection in the rear burner instead of convection in the top and bottom burners, so it didn't brown well because I wasn't using the overhead heating element, and that messed it up.
Now that's one of the things with this oven. It does have a top heating element, a bottom heating element, and then a rear heating element, which is the convection. Now, most of your cooks you can do with just the rear one, but if you got something like that where you want to, give you an example, one of my favorite things to make is Tater Tots because I can get them cooked a lot quicker than I can in my regular oven, but I can use that convection part, to cook them overall. But then towards the end, I'll turn on the top burner to the top heating element to give them that brown overall, and I'll spray a little duck fat spray on them, and they turn out awesome. So yeah, there's some things, and one of the things is it's an app, it's app controlled, so it has built-in recipes. And one of the things that we talked about with the Traeger is the multi-stage cooking. You can do that on that oven as well, so you can have
that's what I've been playing with that multi-stage on this baked potato. I'm doing it with steam for the first part of the cook, and then turning the steam off and ramping the temperature way up to crisp up the potato skin, and I'm just about there. I'm down to about 40 minutes.
Yeah. So, you know, we talked about my book that I have out, you know, Fire and Water Cooking on Amazon. So that was my first book, and it was pretty, you know, challenging to, you know, to get this thing going, but it kind of flew out of me, and I decided I want to do another one. And my next books, I think I'm going to do 2 books. I'm going to do one on, and it's going to be on technology and how it's affecting cooking in our houses.
Right.
And I was gonna do just one big book and mix outdoor and indoor cooking into one book, but I decided I'm going to break it into 2 books, one for outdoor cooking and one for indoor cooking, and just go over all the stuff in the last 15 years or so, how our kitchens and our backyards have changed with the amount of technology that's going into a lot of the stuff that we're using now, and continue every year. Every year I look at this stuff, and when I do my podcast, one of the things I love to talk about with people is, you know, what do you think's coming next? Because every time you turn around, there's something new still coming. And just when you thought there was nothing you could add to your backyard or even your kitchen, something else comes out.
Well, let me give you a name idea for that book. You know how we have the Internet of Things, the IoT? Let's call this the Internet of Things for the kitchen or for cooking.
Yeah.
Because everything now, people won't buy something if they can't put this between them and that.
Yeah.
It's that serious now. I'm serious. People won't buy it if it doesn't have Wi-Fi control anymore.
That's a big thing, but there's also just the design of these, you know, grills. I mean, every time you turn around, there's some kind of new funky design, or they're adding something to it, or they're you know, I mean, I swear to God, every year, you know, you turn around, there's something else new coming out. I mean, it's like Kamado, you know, who would have thought there'd be a Kamado, you know, pellet grill, you know, 2 years ago, right. you know, it's crazy that all this stuff, and like you said, everything has to have. I remember when I first got my first Camp Chef pellet grill, it didn't have Wi-Fi, and you know, just like everybody now, that they started having issues selling because all these other grills started coming out with Wi-Fi, and they felt the need that they had to put it on there,
right,
in order to sell grills. And just like with Weber, their first pellet grill, they waited until they could put Wi-Fi in it. Yep. You know.
Well, Darrin, I appreciate you hanging out some with me. I know it's a Friday night, but be it living the lame life that I live here in the man cave, Friday night is a good night for this. I'm too old. I'm really, really taking quarantine seriously. But on a good note, I haven't told anybody in my audience here yet. I got vaccinated on Monday. As a frontline healthcare worker, I finally was able to negotiate getting vaccine. So,
well, let's hope that takes, because I know you're in the medical field, so you get exposed to it a lot more than any of us. That's for sure.
For anybody that asks about side effects of the COVID vaccine, my only side effect was I had a little sore place on my arm at the injection site for about 2 days, just like a flu vaccine. And my mom is 75, and my mom qualified to get a vaccine this week also. She got one on Wednesday, and she had a little bit a more serious reaction to it than I did. She had the sore place on her arm, but last night she felt weak and achy and puny, like she had some very minor flu symptoms. I checked up on her this morning. I even went down there to visit with her, and she's fine. That's all gone. So she hasn't had any. She's 75, and she hasn't had any serious side effects beyond that. But it bit her a little harder than it bit me. So there are some side effects you might see from that. So, like I said, Darrin, I appreciate you hanging out with me. We'll do it again.
Well, which vaccine did you get? Did you get Moderna or did you get the Pfizer?
Pfizer. And I didn't get mine through my employer. I got mine through I am participating in the Pfizer clinical trial. And unfortunately, they were giving me the stiff arm every time I would contact them about this. I had to threaten to drop out of the trial to get them to unblind my study. my employer sent out an email last weekend that says, if you want this vaccine, you better get it now, because we're going to start offering it to the public this week, and we have a limited supply. So I sent the clinical trial coordinator an email and said, I'm sorry, but I'm dropping out of your trial. My employer says if I don't get this vaccine soon, I'm going to lose my opportunity to get it. So that was on Sunday that I sent the email to the clinical trial people. On Monday, they called me back immediately and said, we've unblinded your study. You got the placebo, so come on down and we're going to give you the real thing. So I went down Monday and got the injection. I've got to go back, I think, on the 25th to get round 2 of that. And that's how that panned out for me. But I chose to participate in the clinical trial. My wife actually figured out that we could do that. We both signed up for it, and we both are participating in that trial, because that's something. I did it because I was hoping, I had a 50-50 chance of getting the vaccine early. And that was my objective, because I'm exposed to COVID every time I go to work.
We don't know
and,
if Tanya's been getting the placebo yet, though, huh?
We don't. I'm betting that she did, though, because she didn't get a sore place on her arm when she got it either. So we'll see. I don't know who has it, who doesn't, but they actually called her and told her to see if she qualified to have her study unblinded, and she didn't. But maybe she will on the next time around, because she's a school teacher, so she may get an early one also.
Well, thanks for having me, John. I really appreciate you letting me on. So
I appreciate you coming on with me, and I'm getting some extra people on here. I want to have guests on here occasionally, because it's more fun to have 2 people to talk to. And I've got a list of people. I've got a couple of people that I'm thinking about bringing on. One of them is already committed, and one of them I'm working on. So
yeah, when I started doing my podcast, I tried doing it by myself, and I'm much more comfortable talking to people and bouncing stuff off of people and talking to a camera myself. Right. I for some reason, I just can't do that. I can talk to somebody else and interact back and forth, and I feel much more comfortable doing it that way.
Tom Cleveland wants to know if they put a chip in me. And Tom, I don't know if they did or not, but my 5G reception is better than it's ever been. All right. Darrin, thanks for joining me. I thank everybody else for hanging out with me here on a Friday night. And until next week, this is John Setzler with Man Cave Meals and Darrin Wilson with Fire and Water Cooking. Thank you. Okay, Darrin.
It still says we're live.
We still live? End live broadcast. Okay, here we go. Let me figure this out. Oh, here we go.